Hey, everybody. Welcome to our April webinar. As you know, we've been doing this every month. And this month, we have a special guest, Ken Yoder from Baker Tilly. So we're excited to have him on our webinar today. I've known Ken for a very long time. Ken, how long have we known each other?
It's got to be 15 plus years at this point.
Yes,
You've
Yeah.
known
long
Ken.
time.
You've known Ken longer than I've known Ken. So
I
Yeah.
have. Yeah, I went back in my old days. So Ken and I go back a long way, as do John and Ken, although not long as us. And today's conversation is really going to be between John and Ken, talking about the partnership between HubSync and Baker Tilly, the journey. That's an overused word, but we actually really have a journey here with them,
sure.
and best practices, lessons learned, and really just we're expecting a really fun, free-flowing discussion between these two. So with that, John and Ken, I don't think any introductions needed. So I'm really just going to hand it over to you two, take myself off spotlight, and have you guys start the discussion. And I will
Yeah,
be
perfect.
managing questions. So if we get questions from the audience, please send any
Absolutely.
questions that you've got. I'll be interjecting as they come in. So, all right, have fun.
Ken and I have been talking about tax and technology for 6+ years now, so I don't think we're going to have
Easily.
any shortage of topics to cover. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us, Ken.
Yeah.
As we prep for this, Betsy mentioned a journey, and it's definitely been a wonderful journey with Baker Tilly, your our first client. Thank you. And as we prep for this, you kind of reminded me of the very early days of HubSync. Actually, I think a little bit even pre HubSync. So let's go back to that first lunch meeting we had in Old Town Alexandria. I think it was in 2018. I had just left Deloitte. I was telling you about HubSync and what I was planning to build, and you got pretty excited. We had a pretty animated discussion about the industry and things
Yeah.
that needed to get fixed, and you reminded me of that. So let's go back to that first lunch meeting and some of the topics we discussed and what you were trying to achieve back then with your Baker Tilly tax technology strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember HubSync before it was named HubSync, before there was the fun logo, and trying discussing with you what the best logo was and the
I
right
forgot
name.
it.
And it's been a long journey. I mean, I think where we started, or where I started, we were one of those traditional firms outside of the big four that really used a lot of boxed solutions. And for a long time, having all these various different solutions, it worked, it was fine, we operated, but we weren't very efficient when we tried to cross over into using different tools and different technologies. And so you know reaching out to you, and I know you were starting your journey outside of the big four but had a lot of experience within it. Really where we started and where we kicked off that conversation, and having lunch in Alexandria, Virginia, was, where do we go, where do we begin? I mean, we're using all these different things. We never really sat back and looked at what we're using and how we're using it and where we could become more efficient in it. So I don't know if you remember this, but we started with that roadmap right off the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are we today, and where do we want to go, and where does the future hold? And so that's really where the start was, what do we exist? And I preface that a little bit by saying, I don't really love looking back all that much, right? I mean, you waste a lot of time saying, where do we stand today? And we all kind of know where we stand, or
Yeah.
in our offices, what's being used. And I really like to spend more time focusing on where we want to go. How can we, what can we adopt, what can we do to take us into the next future of the technology journey for the firm? And so we did that. We spent a lot of time focusing around that. Where do we start at?
Did you think, I mean, one thing that we hear a lot from firms is just, where do I start?
Mm.
There's sometimes they're so overwhelmed with all the different technology options, and as you mentioned, all the point solutions. And so, we did develop that initial roadmap together, but talk to firms who are maybe struggling with where to start on
Yeah.
how you prioritized, some of the initiatives. And you frankly helped HubSync prioritize how we built.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew I had the vision of the entire platform, but frankly, you helped us prioritize the modules and build 8879 first. But talk a little bit about how you kind of focused on your technology needs and where to start first.
Yeah. I mean, I think, looking back, I think we did it right. I mean, I think where we're at right now today, we started where we needed to start. And I think initially we didn't want to boil the ocean, right? There was a lot of things that you're gonna step back and look at and say there's a million different tools, automations, technologies, things that we can put in place to change where we stand today. And I think we started in a space that was achievable, right? We started with 8879, and it was around really just reporting off of 8879. We were using a tool that was okay. It functioned, but it was difficult for us to expand it into multi offices and to move it into multi locations and to expand the user base. And so we started around that 8879, and I think what that drove us to was, one, we proved internally within our own Baker Tilly firm, because at that point in time we didn't have development groups. We weren't doing a lot of technology advancements at that point in time. We weren't automating off of the top of the tools that we had. We were simply just using what we used, and we used it for the most part out of the box. And so achieving that first step, doing one project that said, okay, we can do this, right? We can partner with a HubSync to build out a solution that can scale and that can, really be more efficient. And once we proved that we could do that, and we started somewhere, the ball just rolling from there. And we were focused very heavily on the 1040 side at first, because again, in a lot of these traditional accounting firms, as soon as you start bringing in solutions that could cross over into different industry lines, such as assurance or consulting, it slows progress down, because now all of a sudden you need to get these big teams of people into a room and everyone to agree upon a platform or a tool or a technology that you're going to want to use. So we focused first around the 1040 side of the house, because there's not audits of 1040 clients. There's not a lot of consulting that occurs, on the large breadth of our 1040 clients, and it is a tremendous size. I mean, of the clients that we do, it's half of our practice. And so I didn't want to go small, especially once we started getting into, the platform and that experience. I wanted to dive into something that was going to be big, that was going to be impactful, and that we can show that we can really make change. And when you start doing that, and when you start small, all of a sudden, as you continue to roll, those projects become bigger and bigger, and the efficiencies become more.
You mentioned going big and how big you go. And I remember we talked with Joe O'Neill about this early days around, do we make this optional or mandatory? Yeah. How aggressive are we in terms of trying to roll this out? I mean, I think you struck the right balance when we started talking about rolling out organizers to your clients. And talk a little about that year one communication strategy. I think was a little bit more of an opt-in for clients to buy into the new experience versus the older way. And then in year two, I think you really doubled down with more sophisticated communications to your clients. I remember the QR code and some other things you did. So talk about your thinking around, some clients like, should I start slow with a pilot, go bigger? I think you struck a good beating in terms of how you rolled out the organizers that first year.
Yeah. We, the more that I've rolled technology out over the years, the less and less I really love the idea of pilots, to be quite honest. I mean, I get why you do it. I get, you're going through the process of figuring out how to best roll something out. But to me, a pilot is just add another year till we actually get to the usage of the tool that we're going to roll out, right? I mean, anyone that's on the call that has gone through and done a pilot, I mean, you find the best people that is going to have the most success for that pilot. And you put them and you give them the tool and the technology, and a lot of times everything looks great. Oh, it's running great. It's doing what we asked it to do. I'd tinker a couple things here, but otherwise it's fine. And then you roll it out to the larger scale, and you finally get it into the hands of the people that are really going to find the problems. They're really going to be your group that's gonna, you're going to hear the most from. And so, to me, that's a pilot is just another year. And so when we looked at rolling the platform out, we took an approach of let's just roll it out to everyone and rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, we did slow roll a little bit of the requirement to use it, but we rolled it out to our entire client base, right? I think it was 25 to 30,000 clients at that point in time. We built a process within Baker Tilly where whether a client was going to go in and use the platform themselves or not, we as Baker Tilly were going to go in and use the platform. So that first year, to your point, we still rolled out organizers, paper. We put in some going green initiative type messaging within that organizer. We invited clients to the platform. We told them they were going to get this invitation. We had clients come into the platform, but when clients were still sending us paper back, we were taking that paper in all of our local offices and putting it into their workspace. And then from there, we have a digital team that was built out to take everything from there and move it, digitally along the process. So our local offices were taking it and forcing it into the platform, which helped from an adoption and a change management side on the Baker Tilly side of the house in that first year. And then to your point, the second year, we went even more aggressive. No more organizers, no more paper organizers, right? We're stopping it. It's not happening. We sent out a QR code flashcard that, in the November, December timeframe that said, as you saw last year, we are going green. We are going green. And so clients could go out to the QR code. It took them down a couple different paths. If they put their email address in, if they had already been registered to the platform, it took them to the platform. If they haven't been registered yet, it went them into the registration process. So we did that for year two. And every year after that, it's business as usual. We send them a message out, early in the season saying we're going to roll out the new organizer in the middle of January, and the new digital organizer comes out. And, we've had tremendous success with it. We've cut our organizers 90+% out of the paper world, and they all are on the platform at this point. So
that's great. And, I love that you call HubSync now the client platform. So talk about, now we've expanded obviously to entities in 1120 and 1065 and PBC data collection. I mean, how has this really, in your view, transformed the way, Baker Tilly collaborates and works with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's our single pane, right? I mean, the whole idea, the whole vision back when we were sitting in 2018 and talking about this is one spot for the tax person, the tax professional within Baker Tilly to go to. And so, yes, we started on the 1040 side as to not slow down our progress or have any noise outside from other groups, but we've moved into the entity side of the house and PBC and from a business side. And so, I mean, the idea is that is the place that we are going to go from a tax department to gather information from our clients, to ask for information, to get those documents back, to provide tax returns to them in 8879s. And so, it is transformed the way that we've worked. I mean, it really has cut down a lot of the paper. On the business side of the house, there's a lot of clients weren't using paper, right? We were sending a lot of things through email or, other means. And so now you have a secure place for them to go to, for them to upload their documents. It's consistent. It's one location. And you gain efficiencies when you have that one standard process that everyone's going through. And that's what we've, achieved here as we move forward with it.
We've been sending out static engagement letters on the 1040 side for many, many years, but interestingly, for a variety of reasons, you guys were a later adopter of Engagement Letter Wizard. So this was your first big busy season with Engagement Letter Wizard and building and templates, et cetera. Obviously, this is a hot topic. We're with a client today talking about engagement letters. Talk about change management as it relates to shifting your firm from maybe more ad hoc processes to a more structured engagement letter solution and tracking, and any of the change management challenges that you may have faced as you've moved from your prior processes with engagement letter to using a more standardized tool.
Yeah, I mean, ELW was something that I was excited for a while. I mean, we ran through, like any other firm, a little bit of bureaucracy around, which tool, what are we going to use, how are we going to use it, and we spent a good amount of time figuring out what the right tool was. And, HubSync's ELW tool was the right tool for our tax group. And, this same with the tax platform or ELW. I mean, the change management is there's a tremendous amount of effort that needs to go into that from every group. I mean, internally and externally. You're talking to a bunch of clients that are used to receiving paper, whether it's an engagement letter organizer. They're used to the way that we've done it for years. And so, helping them through that process is that takes some effort. And so, but when you look at the flip side of that, after you get past that year of change and change management that you go through, the benefits, the platform now is just a part of Baker Tilly's tax process, right? It's an inherently a piece of what we do. And it's almost odd when you have a client I shouldn't even say almost odd. It is odd when you have a client that isn't using it, or that isn't on the platform, or that we're not using the platform process with them. People are raising their hand saying, why aren't they there, right? Versus, oh, good, they're not there. We can skirt around the process. But from an ELW standpoint, I mean, it's been years that we have wanted to get out of the traditional engagement letter world of starting with a word template that can be modified in any particular way. It was structured at the template level, but once you took that template and it was in the hands of 1,800 people, the modifications can happen in any particular way. And so, being able to control what can and can't change within that engagement letter, how that engagement letter is going out, and also knowing every engagement letter and how it's gone out, has been really interesting. And it's been really good for us. We've adopted ELW for all of our tax engagement letters. It doesn't matter if you're going to get a tax engagement letter out of Baker Tilly, it's going to go through ELW. And that for me allows me to understand what is in every single engagement letter that's there. I can now report on every engagement letter, what's in it, what are the fees associated with it, what clients or entities returns are a part of that engagement letter. And we can then report on the back end about all of that, where in the past that just wasn't available when it was a Word document and, largely in the paper world.
Yep.
So Ken, a lot of questions around the change management, user adoption, and how your clients reacted to, I don't call it a drastic shift because they were used to it in other parts of their personal world, but just a lot of questions around change management, adoption, and feedback from your clients.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there's a lot of clients that didn't like it. I mean, they loved their paper. They, the start of their tax season and their, getting their tax return filed was getting that envelope with the little green triangles from Baker Tilly. Everyone sends it out in the same way, and gathering their documents and sending it back to us, and largely never looking at the paper or anything else that's there, just using the return envelope to send it to us. And so, there was a good amount of change management. But we also had a tremendous number of clients that said, it's about time. We've been sending paper in the mail to you for how long, or dropping it off at your office. And just about every other industry or every other group that we work with, whether it's our financial advisors or whoever else it may be, has moved to a more digital process. And so, you still have still today, it's been 4 years, we still have those clients that are around the nation that still want their paper, and we will send them to them now and again, to provide it to them. But it's less than 10% of our client base. It's probably even less than 5% at this point in time. And we still direct them to the platform, even if we are sending organizers out to them. And so, the change management is tough. You're going to have some clients that are going to push back on it, but, and I don't know if everyone would follow my sentiment, but are those the right Baker Tilly clients that we want, that still want that paper, that can't log into a digital experience or a digital platform to be able to provide that information to us? I'd argue that in many cases, it's probably not the client that we want. And so, but we still combat that every day. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. You're going to have a piece of your client base that's going to push back. And, it's how hard do you want to push to them to move them to the platform?
And then, and I guess we could probably have a whole webinar about this, but in terms of change management within your firm, because sometimes you can't get everyone on board. They say, people are like, I do what I do, and I'm going to continue to do what I do. So, just the change management within Baker Tilly, and I'm imagining it must have been top down, like mandatory. This is what we're doing.
Well, I mean, remember we had this debate on the M word with Joe, and I think we didn't start. We call it the M word. Joe's like, I'm not sure I'm ready to use the M word yet. But I mean, we actually didn't start mandatory, even with 8879. I remember we had that first meeting with Joe after the first, we thought a lot of time, everybody was going to flock to this, and we didn't have quite as much adoption, Ken, as we thought originally on 8879. But then that second year, it was like, no, this is the way we're doing it. It's mandatory. So I think you handled that well as well in terms of the internal change management and rollout.
Yeah, I mean, you have plenty of people don't want to change the way that they do their work, right? I mean, a lot of people have been successful in working in the way that they have for years and years and years. And it's really hard to understand, if I change how I work today, it's going to be maybe a little bit inefficient the first, few that I do, until I get to the place where it becomes really efficient. But, when you build your process around it, that's why I was really hard in our first years, had plenty of discussions and arguments with many people around, all right, even if the client, we can't get the client to use the platform, we are going to use it, right? We are going to use that as our mechanism to move these documents around through the nation, and to where they need to be. And so, when you change your process and you drive it through your administrative groups and kind of just how the firm starts to operate, those that aren't following that process, it becomes very apparent, and they become a quick outlier, and then they start to see those efficiencies that are gained when you do follow the process, right? And so when those partners or groups come in and say, hey, why this platform is this or this or this, it takes so much more time to do that. Well, it's because you're not following the way that we've designed the process to be, right? You've fought it all the way up to this place. And once they jump on board and once they dive into it, they then see that these efficiencies and these things that we've built really do, it just becomes easier. It really does.
The one thing that comes up frequently, and I know we've already touched upon it a little bit, but maybe just double click on it, is just lessons learned, best practices as you look back over the last 6 years. Ken, what are the things you think you did well, and what are some of the maybe mistakes or the lessons learned in this 6-year journey that we've been on together?
One of the things I don't think that we did very well, and we're still working with, is just our client data. Just how we housed it within Baker Tilly was not very good, and we're still working on. We're still today working on that. Never gets easier, as you add more tools or technologies, or you're changing from one ERP system to the next, or whatever it might be. It doesn't become any easier to clean this information up, and your client base becomes larger and larger. So, I think one of the lessons is I would have pushed a lot earlier on cleansing our client data and having really that one source of truth. Of all of our client information, what their email addresses are, what their addresses are, even down to what office are they out of. For us, we have 40 offices that do tax returns. And if it's an assurance and a tax client, their assurance office may be different than their tax offices. And so working through those and trying to figure out, where they sit, or what the right office is, or what the right office is for tax versus what it might be for assurance or one of the other groups. There's a lot of work there that you don't really think of until you dive pretty deep into this and you start wanting to connect a lot of these systems together, because you can't connect them together if you don't have that, kind of solid client information. And you become really, becomes a very manual process to get all that client information into the systems that you need. So
I remember us talking about shared data service with your board early on. Like I stressed the importance of how important client data, entity data, and being able to synchronize it across HubSync and your other applications. It's a theme that we see consistently across the industry. Some firms have done a better job with client data cleanup, but it's a consistent pain point that we hear. I know we've made progress, but there's always room to continue to improve. We've talked about emails and access versus in your ERP system, and how do we synchronize this all together? It's really, really important.
Yeah, and truth be told, we still haven't figured it out. We're still working on it to this day, since 2018, and and that's the core of a lot of the things that we want to do. And so, that's just a tremendous effort, because it's a lot of cleanup, and you need your engagement teams to help you. There's not a lot that you can do without the engagement teams being a part of that, and it's not a fun. It's kind of an ugly thing to do. It's not, really flashy to go clean up all of our client data. No one's really energized to do that, as a summer project. But it's something that needs to get done to really make this efficient. So, I think I can't underscore that. I think the change management is significant. Also, and this is probably not, a great thing to say, but, really trying to understand the level of your client sophistication too, and trying to understand it. I have some of my support group that's on here that helps me every day, and they're a tremendous group. But we answer so many tickets on, I can't figure out what my password is, or I can't figure out MFA, or I can't log in, or I don't get my reset password email. That's when we look through our tickets on the platform and how to get clients in and helping them. Those are our number one tickets. And so really understanding what that effort's going to be for your clients, and not underscoring it. I remember us in the early days sitting there and going through this process. And I'm like, I don't think we can make it any easier than it is today. Right. I don't know. I know what's that. Yeah. I don't know how we can possibly make it any easier than it is. And we found out that it somehow in some way there were other easier things that we could have done once it went out into the masses. But that's also another reason on why, you know, you're not going to know until you start getting this out into your clients' hands and start working on it and trying to figure out what client base that you have and how sophisticated they are to get into the platform and into these tools.
Great point. We've talked about looking back a lot, like you said. We've got 5 minutes left. Let's look forward a little bit. What are you excited about? Talk about your plans going forward, and what you want to do with the platform and other opportunities to optimize, automate. I'm sure the firms here would love to hear some of the things you're thinking about in terms of next steps with your strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, now that we have all of our entities and all of our client base out there, within the platform, I really think now it's, the continued adoption of from the client side and also, internally. But it's really getting into that data and really starting to try to automate, a lot of these things. We've been using the platform for a lot of years. ELW is new to us. I mean, I think I don't know that I can put enough, shiny lights on how impactful ELW is going to be here at Baker Tilly for us, to be able to drive things like opening up project codes and sending things to contingent workforces, whether that's onshore, offshore, automatically without having people in the process or making this a manual thing. Right now, if we want to send something to our, contingent workforce, we need to have 7216 consent signed, and, someone's got to put eyes on that to make sure that we have it and all the entities are listed. And we have some great tools that are in place to automate some of those pieces, but a lot of those pieces aren't automated because we haven't been able to get into the ELW it's into the engagement letter pre-ELW. And so, now being able to pull that data out, look at all that information that we have and really start to automate a lot of the tools that we have in place. That is the next step. I mean, again, going back to our previous discussion, one of the challenges is we need to have clean client data across all of our platforms to be able to do that. And so, that's an effort that we're undertaking.
Oh, great. I mean, I know we talked about that last mile automation too, around 8879 filing, firing off to the workflow engine. That's something we're excited about talking about, and that's coming online too. So it's great. Looks like Betsy's showing up, but means we're probably almost at time.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually a perfect intro, John, because we do have some exciting news coming around last mile automation. So for everyone on the call, take a look or keep your eyes open for this exclusive invitation we'll be sending out to certain key stakeholders and clients regarding a sneak peek of this. So that will be coming to your inbox soon. Ken, we've gotten a lot of chatter and a lot of questions around this on this call. Maybe we'll have to maybe I'll send them to you afterward to get some answers.
Yeah.
But one question that came up, one more thing is, did you get all these resources freed up? Like, did you find that you've got all this time now for other resources to do more qualitative work?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not of your time.
Yeah, I don't know about any of my time or my team's time. I don't know that we found any additional time, but I mean, I think we've found a tremendous amount of resource availability from all the things that we've did. I mean, just think about, without even putting a number to it, I mean, just think about not having to print organizers, mail organizers, stuff them in envelopes, put all that, all that time and effort that we've spent around that. Same thing with engagement letters and all of that effort and time and paper. I mean, you free up your team members to really focus on the things that they should be focusing on, really not the things that they shouldn't. I mean, all this stuff is very important, but, there's a lot of things that we need to do in every day to get to service our clients. And so we've freed up these hours to help them do that, and, kind of taken away a lot of the extra, hours that they need for processes that we can automate as much as possible. So
we're going to have you back because
I'm here.
30 minutes.
I might have to do, an hour or 2 hours, right?
All right. Thank you both for your time. I know how busy you are. I appreciate it. And to all the participants, we will be posting this and probably by tomorrow on YouTube and sharing the link. So thank you for joining. Keep your eyes open for this exclusive invite that's coming, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and happy almost May 1st. Have a great day, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.